Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the West Lindsey series. This is one of the 9 districts of Lincolnshire and one of the county's most rural. It has 128 civil parishes. Let's see which one this episode's all about. Welcome back to West Lindsey for the 128th and final time. For 6 years, this was my view every morning out of this window right here onto a green, which you can see on the right hand side. I lived here in this village, and today I'm going to walk around it to complete the West Lindsey series. It's going to be quite emotional because there's going to be plenty of things that I'm going to see around here that I'll remember. Not going to be your average video. It's going to be an hour-long special, this one, as I take you around the parish of Fiskerton. The West Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. This video is sponsored by Bassett Law Pro Clean, specialist floor and upholstery cleaners based in Retford, Nottinghamshire. Do you have a commercial space, own a restaurant, hotel or pub, maybe an office block? Bassett Law Pro Clean cover the entire country for commercial work. And they have a special offer. Quote the Village Idiot when you inquire and get a massive 7.5% off. Need it cleaned by the experts? Contact Bassett Law Pro Clean now. And this video is also sponsored by Jamie's Fitness Studio, based on Low Road, Greyingham, near Curtin in Lindsey. Jamie is one busy lady. Check her out by calling 07906 749 574 or emailing hello@jamies.co.uk. Online membership is available. There's a link to her Facebook page in the description. Jamie's Fitness Studio. Get fit, get happy, get healthy. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Hello folks, for the last couple of years, the Lincolnshire district of West Lindsey has been a Monday staple on your screens. I know today's a Saturday, but there was no way on earth I was putting anything else out for the last episode of the year. For the 128th and final time, we're in West Lindsey, and the last one on the list is the other village where I lived before moving away from the area. For 6 years, I lived in Fiskerton, a small village that lies to the north of the River Witham on the district boundary with North Kesteven. It's about 5 miles from the centre of Lincoln and around the same distance from Bardney. Here, I've done my best to show you pretty much every single street. I may have gone a little overboard in places actually. There's so much I could tell you about my own experiences here, but if I did that, it would go against everything you already know me for. So instead, over the next hour, it'll be a mixture of both history and personal memories. Most of the history comes from 2 books given to me by my own mother, who still lives in the village. This route took me 4 hours to follow. Under normal circumstances, a village of this size might have only taken me 1, maybe 1.5 maximum. But I love it. No matter where I travel, far and wide, this is my home and I want to share it all with you. So, for the final time in West Lindsey, let's walk. So I've allowed 4 hours for this walk around Fiskerton, which is crazy when you consider how small this place is. You'll get a feel for how small it is as we go around, but there's still plenty of things to cover. It's got an airfield, it's got a river, which we can't actually access, and you'll see why later on in this episode. But there's all sorts of other things as well, and I know there are going to be people who are going to come and say hello to me at some point around this route. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Here's the back door of my parents' house. I've come out of this door more times than I've had up dinners, and up there is where we're heading to start. Through that gate you can see in the distance, and turn right onto the Crescent. This is the street where I lived. We start on the Crescent, right in the middle of the village. This is the street where I lived, and my parents still do. The Crescent is generally bungalows, save for a central row of houses along its northern edge. A lot of retired folk live here. It surrounds a central green where no ball games are allowed. Dogs are, but if you're walking them here, you've been warned. The Crescent was one of 8 sites around the village which housed families after World War II in properties known as the huts. They were ramshackle things, very much temporary, and were eventually cleared and replaced with the houses you see here today. Towards the end of the road is a short path between the bungalows. This is one of the entrances to Fiskerton Primary School. I know it looks dull and grey right now, but in the summer the green is superb. It was a pleasure to wake up to every day. Now when you reach the end of the Crescent, you are then on Ferry Road, which runs all the way down to Short Ferry and the bridge over Barlingzoe, which you will have seen in a couple of episodes before, most notably Stainfield and of course Barlings. Now also, just as you turn onto Ferry Road, you see this house on your left hand side. This is where the local shop used to be, and it was run by a man called Steve and his wife Rachel when I lived here. They had a little Suzuki carry van which I used to deliver the papers in all around Fiskerton. Wasn't always successful, but that's a different story entirely. The shop is no longer there anymore, and the nearest one to Fiskerton now you'll find on the parade at Cherry Willingham. Let's walk beyond the old shop, because just beyond the old shop you've got the entrance to the school, and you've also got the village hall and the playground as well. Just after the old shop is School Close, a small residential street that's also the vehicular entrance to Fiskerton Primary School. Education in Fiskerton can be traced back to 1839 when the first parish school was built. This would be replaced in 1860. That's when a national school was built. It was greatly enlarged in 1904 and it could hold 120 children at its peak. It became a secondary school, eventually being replaced by what we know now as Priory Pembroke Academy in Cherry Willingham. The old school then became the village hall and used to stand here, where the modern hall, built in 2005, is today. The old school building would likely still be here now had it not burned down in a devastating fire in April 2002. After just 20 minutes, the fire had eaten away at the roof, leaving only the rafters standing. It was a shock to the whole community. The modern hall, though, is state-of-the-art. It has 2 rooms, one large and one small, as well as a kitchen and a bar. And the hall is the hub of the community. Many local groups convene here, and this handy seat outside is a nice summer meeting spot. In front of the hall is the only playground in the village, with a decent amount of play equipment for Fiskerton's young ones. Here too is a board with some local history. Again, this mentions the Lincolnshire limewoods, which the village lies within. Next to that we have the parish notice board. It was a bittersweet feeling placing the card on this one. West Lindsey is complete. Built with the new village hall was a brand new scout hut. The schoolmaster's house had previously been used for this purpose. So in short, this area has altered a lot over the last 20 years, the biggest changes the village has experienced in recent times. Now, of course, you will have noticed that it's very early in the morning here. It's about 7:30 at the moment, and as I said, I've allowed 4 hours for this. There is a reason why I've allowed 4 hours though, because parts of this route are actually quite lengthy, and this next part is definitely one of the lengthiest. You see, behind the village hall and the scout hut, there's a footpath which leads onto Fiskerton airfield, and it's a big airfield as well. It'll take me a good half an hour to walk all the way around it. So, without further ado, I think we'd better get to it, hadn't we? After a muddy 5-minute walk from the village hall, we've arrived at the perimeter track around the former RAF Fiskerton. Like so many Lincolnshire air bases, this played a crucial role in World War II. This was the base of both 49 and 576 squadrons. Its construction began in November 1942 and it was ready for use the following January. It's still partially in use. However, there are now no aircraft. Instead, much of it has been covered with a solar farm, and it may soon be bigger than it currently is. A new section is proposed called Fiskerton West. If built, it'll provide up to 11,000 homes with power annually. The airbase does have other uses, like for example agriculture. It's not uncommon to see hay bales in these recessed areas. Although it's still in use for something, I still get the chills walking on the airfield. It's a sombre, sometimes lonely place. As the perimeter track starts to turn north, you come to another of its modern uses, the Fiskerton Airfield oil field. Although it's not a major oil field, any that's produced from these wells is sold and tankered to the refineries in Immingham. Well, see, I've always thought the airfield to be a very spooky, eerie place, and to be fair, with the weather like it is in the middle of November, that kind of just affirms my theory, doesn't it? There are plenty of ghostly stories on this airfield, probably too many for me to actually tell you, but yeah, it is a spooky place. It's an old airfield, you know, it's going to have tales from the war, isn't it? We're about halfway around it. I don't think I've ever walked all the way around an old airfield before, and I've actually never walked around this whole thing before myself. So it's the first time I've actually done this, despite the fact I lived here for so long. So we're going to continue around the perimeter track. It'll go past a couple of farms and it'll take us towards a memorial which has only been sighted within the last few years. I don't think it was there when I was living here. It's been erected since, so we'll go and see that. The perimeter road continues as we head around the northernmost section of the airfield and past Witham Moor Rifle Range. It's located behind this big mound. It includes two purpose-built ranges, one 75 metres long, the other 25. Witham Moor Rifle Range is an MOD-approved closed complex, making it perfect for short-range weapons training. To the north is Witham itself, which can be seen quite clearly at this point. Between the two villages is a modern road. However, when the airfield was built, the road between them had to be closed because the runways crossed it. We're now on one of the old runways. Fiskerton had 3 in a standard A shape. Only parts of them now remain visible. As you approach the Witham Road, you come to a memorial. 117 aircraft which flew from here were lost in the war. This memorial garden remembers the brave souls who were lost with them. There are 3 stones dedicated in the late 1990s. After the war, the 49 Squadron Association was formed. Members come here every year for an annual reunion. The passing of time has reduced the number that make the trip each year, but the squadron's role in the war will never be forgotten. There are 2 very poignant poems that can be found in the garden. This one is entitled "Listen to the Wind." Spirits in Flight was written by Eddie Coward in memory of his brother Cliff, a Lancaster bomber navigator who flew from Fiskerton. I may have gone a little bit overboard on the airfield, to be fair, because normally when we see an airfield, an old airfield, we don't spend this long covering it, do we? But then again, this is the one that I grew up with, I suppose, and you know, it just felt right to cover it in its entirety. So we've walked all the way around it, we found the memorial, and now we're going to head off it and down Witham Road. Now on the way back into Fiskerton, we're going to pass a little building which we always knew was the bullet factory. It's called Prime Take. That's our next landmark. Prime Take is literally a bullet factory as it manufactures specialist ammunition. However, that's not what this has always been. Completed in 1960, this was originally a Royal Observer Corps nuclear bunker, which was operational until 1991. Prime Take moved in 7 years later in 1998. The only other property nearby is this solitary house directly opposite. After the factory, you then pass two houses which are connected. This is the gorgeous red brick old rectory, which was replaced by the new rectory, just a few paces away down Witham Road. As we pass this, the road starts to dip downhill slightly. This northwestern corner of Fiskerton has some of its oldest and grandest properties. I always saw this as the posh end. In truth though, nowhere in Fiskerton is any posher, any richer, or above or below anywhere else. It's all fabulous. Now, normally a street like High Meadows would be one I wouldn't bother to walk up, because it's a dead end. However, I'm trying to catch everything, so up it we shall go. It's a double-spurred cul-de-sac of semi-detached properties. High Meadows was the first building project undertaken by Welton Rural District Council after the war to replace the huts. In total, High Meadows has 35 houses. It's built on a plot of land which was previously just an open, unused space. They were completed in the mid-1950s. A lot are privately owned now, and those that aren't are owned by housing association ACES. It was only a matter of time before somebody recognised me. As I was coming down off High Meadows there was a car on the right hand side and the people in it knew who I was, so I had a nice long chat with them about what I'm doing today and the whole West Lindsey series and everything that's been TVI related for the past 3 years. Lots of questions. I'm expecting a few more people to do the same before I get to the end of this walk, I'm telling you. Right, where are we? Well, we've come down off High Meadows and we're now at a little green. You can see a bus stop over there at the end of High Meadows here, and this green is at the end of Plough Lane. So here's the green, there we go, and there are two roads here that meet each other. You've got Plough Lane, which goes that way, and then Orchard Road, which comes this way. I'm going to form a little loop around this section here because by using Plough Lane I can get on to the main road towards Cherry Willingham and then come back along Orchard to this point, and then we'll head along Chapel Road. The oldest part of Fiskerton is its southwestern corner, featuring narrow streets like Plough Lane and Orchard Road. Rather weirdly though, and very confusingly, Orchard Road used to be called Plough Lane until it was inexplicably changed. Plough Lane features this rather familiar sign, "Hello again Viking Way." Until I started this channel, I never knew Fiskerton was on it. The Viking Way runs along an often muddy footpath to Cherry Willingham. Plough Lane bends its way to Lincoln Road. This features 4 semi-detached houses on the right before running off to the east towards Cherry Willingham, a mile away. However, for us it's a left turn. In this direction you're heading towards the church, past some more modern detached residences. The only other thing of note here is a compound associated with Anglian water. I promised I would try to catch everything. So now we're heading back along Orchard Road, which, as we learned a moment ago, used to be called Plough Lane. Its original name was responsible for the name of Plough House. It was a licensed beer house, but never actually became a pub. Instead, it became a private residence. In the 1840s, as a beer house, it was run by Stephen Hurton, who was also a grocer. Now we're back to where we were a few moments ago, only this time we're looking at Chapel Farm on Chapel Road. Chapel Road used to be called Back Lane. The chapel itself was Wesleyan and it was built in 1839. Gotta tell you, at the moment this is less of a walk and more of a shuffle because I'm not walking far between filming things. Here's a bus. That's number 3, which will be going to the bus stop, which we saw just a few moments ago. We're heading the other way. You can see in front of us, there's a little opening on the right. That is Blacksmith Lane or Blacksmith Road. I can never remember which one it is, to be fair. We're walking past that to an estate which is on the left-hand side. Up there you've got Homefield, you've got Waterhill, and you've got Ashholt Close. It's one of the newest estates here in Fiskerton. We're going to walk around that because it can form a nice loop around it. Then we're going to come back to Blacksmith to walk down it towards the church. Throughout the latter part of the 20th century, Fiskerton experienced some growth with individual infilling here and there. However, the biggest development in that time was this, the Homefield estate, located to the north of Chapel Road. It was completed in the early 2000s while I was living here. In 2003, this road, Waterhill, was still a construction site. There are 3 streets up here, Homefield, Waterhill and Ashholt Close, and they're connected by a series of short footways. One issue that residents have here is parking. Even though they have drives, street parking has been a concern for many. Flooding has been an issue too, but that's now been resolved thanks to a brand new drain which runs to a lagoon near the village hall. There are 2 areas of open space here too, purposely left to allow Homefield residents access to a free recreational area. Now at the end of Homefield you can actually get to the school. You can see over there there's a gate that people are coming in and out of, and that leads down into the school. I believe that's something new because I don't remember that when I used to live here. I think it used to just be a dead end if I recall rightly, so that's an access point that's been added recently. Don't know how recently, but yeah, you can get to the school now from Homefield. So yeah, we're going to turn around here, and then there's another path over here which links 2 parts of Homefield together. We'll come down off this estate and go to the Close next before Blacksmith Road and the church. The Homefield estate isn't the only area of new properties in the village. Off Chapel Road and behind the Crescent is the Close. When I moved to Fiskerton in 2003, the Close looked nothing like it does now. I watched this grow from my own kitchen window. Over the road is a paddock. Many years ago, according to several people who lived here when I did, this used to be a cricket pitch. Fiskerton has no sports facilities at all now. I remember myself some plans to build on this some years ago, which obviously failed. The village is still expanding in certain areas though. Here on the end of Blacksmith Road, new houses are under construction. Some have already been built. Manor Yard Court was new to me. When I lived here, this area was a collection of farm buildings. Blacksmith Road has the old forge and an old dairy. Blacksmithing history here can be traced back as far as the early 1800s. The Thompson family were blacksmithing here for 300 years. That's according to Jack Thompson, Fiskerton's last blacksmith. It's no surprise that the last forge, located at the end of the street and built in the 1930s, is named Thompson's Place. Okay, so this early morning rain seems to have stopped, but the wind is still very much here, so it's still not pleasant conditions out here, but it's getting better, which is a good thing. Okay, so at the end of Blacksmith Road, you're back onto Lincoln Road again, and you can see here there's a big wall, a big white wall. There's a corner there, a very sharp corner. camera is about to fall over in the wind. Yeah, and it's not the easiest of corners to navigate, shall we say. It's very narrow, and I'm very surprised that this part of the village hasn't been made into a one-way street, because sometimes if you're driving through there and you meet a lorry, there isn't really much room, to be honest with you. But alas, it's still the same as it always has been. To the right, you can see there's another wall with some railings. That is the boundary wall of St Clement's Churchyard. The churchyard is effectively a modern cemetery because it lacks any grand monuments or tombs that many country churches have. That's because there's never been a family of landed gentry in Fiskerton, and few stones predate the turn of the 20th century. From the churchyard you can see the northern bank of the River Witham. We'll be heading down there very shortly. St Clement of Rome Church is unique in Lincolnshire. It's the only one in the entire county that has a round tower. However, this fact is not obvious, is it? It's because the tower is enclosed with a series of buttresses, making it appear square. At the foot of the tower is what looks like a cross base. I couldn't find anything about this, and oddly, I don't remember it. The current building is mostly 15th century, but Fiskerton's entry in the Domesday Book does mention a church at that time. It's likely that parts of that early building are incorporated in some small way into the one we see today, and here's why. How St Clement's is built is so unusual. It's been described in the past by many experts as a curious architectural muddle. The whole south half of the church was rebuilt at some point, reusing its existing stones, but many were replaced incorrectly. It was much restored in 1863, and all the stained glass and interior furniture date from the 19th or 20th centuries. The churchyard also has the Fiskerton Stone, a rock which legend says flips over after a hanging at Lincoln Prison. Standing opposite the church is the manor house. The manor of Fiskerton was granted to the Abbey of Peterborough in 1060. As a direct result of that grant, almost all the land in the parish belongs to the church commissioners to this day. Now, once you exit the church and you've come past the manor house and you've gone around the tight bend where the white wall is, you're then heading down towards where the old post office used to be and towards Nelson Road. Now, between there and here, there's a new build street called the Moorings, which is off to the right beyond these two houses you can see here. Now, why would there be a street called the Moorings, you ask? Well, I know why, and I'm going to tell you. In the days before the airfield and all the wartime connections, Fiskerton relied on farming and fishing as ways to get by. Its name is its biggest clue. Fiskerton literally means fisherman's town, and that brings us to the old moorings. Until the Witham fens were drained in 1782, Fiskerton had a quay where shallow fen boats were tied up. This is where it was. The Witham had a channel which stretched all the way to the churchyard, and the old iron mooring rings can still be seen there. We've reached a bend now. My dad used to work for Direct Cars, a taxi firm based in one of those bungalows you can see now. Also on the bend there stands a big white house on the end of Nelson Road. That's the old post office. This hasn't been closed all that long. When I lived in the village, I was a regular here. It's now been converted into a house. The last postmaster was Lester Tyler, who, as of 2023, still lives elsewhere in the village. A nicer man you may never meet. Nelson Road gets its name from another former pub, the Lord Nelson, which first appears in records in 1796. It was a cottage originally, which became a licensed alehouse. It was run by Thomas Wright, a butcher from Wreatham. Nelson Road is a dead end, but in the corner is a footpath. That's where we're going, but we're not following my original planned route. Okay, so at the end of Nelson Road, you've got a footpath. Now this takes you down to the riverbank, to the River Witham, although it splits halfway down. I will note that there is a sign that says footpath closed here. However, I came on a little recce mission here yesterday to see what the riverbank is actually like. Now I'm not going to go and walk on the bank because it's just not the done thing to do, especially with the situation with the flooding at the moment, because obviously Storm Babbitt did its damage and the bank is starting to slip. Hopefully it doesn't slip and flood the village. However, my original route was supposed to go down the bank, but there's a bridge here, and after the bridge there's a split. If you see here, look, that one goes down towards the riverbank, which is where I'm not going. But as far as I'm aware, there's nothing wrong with walking down this path. This takes you to St Clement's Drive. What this does is it'll go on to St Clement, and then there's another path which cuts across this field and heads down towards the 5-mile bridge. Don't need to touch the riverbank at all. I'll talk about the river when I get to the bridge over there. And here is a piece of footage from the previous day where I came to see what these fields were like. There was no floodwater, but the riverbank was still off limits. Now, I like, because Storm Babbitt, which hit in November, had a big effect on Fiskerton. It flooded all of this area, because the River Witham, you can see the riverbank over there, the River Witham runs to the south of the village, and all this was underwater. Now of course it's not underwater now because it's all receded and it looks like a nice day here, but it also had a problem with the riverbank. Parts of the bank were starting to slip, and so the fear was that the flooding would be worse or even come back at a later point. Now I don't know what the bank is like at the moment because I've yet to actually go down there and see, but this is why I'm having this little recce mission first before we get started. You can see here to the right towards Lincoln where the bank has slipped slightly. Can you see that? I'm not going to go up there because I don't really want to disturb it. In late October and early November this year, Storm Babbitt caused Fiskerton some serious concerns. It all centred around the River Witham and the damage it caused to the riverbank. Two separate sections of the bank made of compacted clay began to slip under the immense pressure of the water in the river. At the time of filming, the riverbank was still closed. Normally, it's a public right-of-way. Although the bank held firm enough for the Environment Agency to step in and attempt a repair, the concern was great enough for around 70 homes in the village to be evacuated. An information centre was opened at the village hall to keep residents in the loop and to offer support to find alternative accommodation. Residents have now returned to their homes after the water receded, but the threat still remains. Realistically, repairs to the damaged bank could take months. The whole situation brought out the absolute best in this already tight-knit community. Locals sent up drones to monitor the bank on a daily basis. Information was constantly communicated via Fiskerton's thriving social media presence, and local company Welton Aggregates even chipped in to provide sandbags for the affected residents. Although it might not be the best thing to have ever happened to Fiskerton, it certainly helped show how close this community is, and I, as a former resident, was very proud. So, as we've seen, the area to the south of the village is open fields. It might not look like much, but really it's very important. These fields are currently crucial to the village. Without them, any future flooding might be truly devastating. There's no real landmarks here apart from this, a sewage works, which is accessed via a short track from Ferryside. This is nothing exciting, as I'm sure you can see, but I will reiterate I was trying to catch literally everything. The Witham has flooded these fields since time immemorial, and its very presence was vital for Fiskerton's reliance on fishing. As well as fishing though, the river and its valley offered a travel route and opportunities for hunting from the earliest times. Archaeologists have been very interested in the Witham Valley given its rich history going back to Neolithic times. So much so, it's been suggested that the Witham Valley is second only to the Thames Valley in terms of archaeological importance. As we approach the river, we come to a small wildlife area, Reed Bush. It's a wetland, mostly open with some willow and alder. Running behind that is the North Delf. On the other side of the river is its southern counterpart, and all three run in parallel. So as I said, my original route went down the riverbank, but at the moment you can't walk down the riverbank, and I expected to see this. Here you can see plenty of people wearing high-vis jackets. I'm not talking about me. They're all Environment Agency workers, I would assume, probably checking out the probably checking out the safety of the bank at the moment. There's the bank, and I would have been up there had it not been for Storm Babbitt. But you know, that's the weather in this country and that's what it can do. So now we're off to see the river, and to do that we have to cross the North Delf via Ferry Lane to get to the 5 Mile Bridge. Built in 1957, the 5 Mile Bridge would replace a ferry service that connected the two sides of the Witham together. The bridge is tubular steel, and it was built by Tuberites, a structural engineering company originally based in Newport, Wales. The company would move to Liverpool but closed down in 1966. Several Tuberite bridges still stand all over the country. Once on the bridge, you'll notice the Witham is absolutely dead straight, with Lincoln Cathedral clearly visible in the distance. Once windy, it's been artificially straightened. Its twists and turns meant that part of the south bank used to be in Fiskerton Parish. It once included the 5 Mile House railway station on the Great Northern Railway. Its former platforms were just yards from here. It got its name from the 5 Mile House Inn, which became part of the station when the railway arrived in 1848. After the railway closed, the pub would too, and it relocated to the High Street. So why is all this called 5 Mile? It's because at this point along the river you are exactly 5 miles from both Lincoln to the east and Bardney to the west. I've got to be totally honest with you, there's nothing particularly exciting about Ferry Lane. It's basically just a road that leads from Ferry Road down to the Witham at the 5 Mile Bridge, and there's nothing on it really, as you can see. It's pretty much bereft of anything. There's a farmyard or something on the right there, a couple of farm buildings, and I know there's a caravan park at the top, Diamond House Caravan Park. You can just about see a bit of it there on the right hand side. You might even be able to see some caravans in a sec as I get beyond these trees. There you go, there they are, caravans away in the distance, but they're technically not on Ferry Lane, they're actually on Ferry Road because the entrance is on Ferry Road. And directly opposite that caravan park there's an old factory, and it's called Tanya's. Let's see what we can learn about that. This building is the former Tanya knitwear factory. Since 1948 it stood on the site of the RAF base's officers' mess. It made garments using knitting machines. It was owned originally by Black Brothers and Bowden, lace makers from Nottingham. The factory was a major local employer. In its 1970s heyday, around 200 people worked here, many who lived in the village. Its clients included big names John Lewis and Next, but 10% of its products were shipped to the USA, Scandinavia and the Far East. It underwent several ownership changes until in 2006 it closed its doors for the final time. Ever since, it's laid abandoned. Diamond House opposite was part of an old tannery, and its caravan park can cater for up to 5 vans or motorhomes. Next is Hall Lane, where I remember a man named Clive lived. He was a regular fixture on the pub's pool team, alongside me. Halfway up the lane we come to some more oil wells on the left. Oil was discovered here, by the way, in the late 1990s. There was once a hall on Hall Lane, hence the name. It's not here anymore though, and the date of its construction is sketchy at best. Definitely still here though is this white house, which has been unoccupied for as long as I can remember, and it still is. It was behind this house that Fiskerton once had a cinema. It is of course no longer here, and it's been reduced to a concrete pad. And Hall Farm nearby is one of the few locations that still carry echoes of Fiskerton Hall's existence. It's also still very much active. For as long as I can remember, that white house has been unoccupied, and it's still for sale now apparently. So yeah, it's a very haunting building. And speaking of haunting, there is supposed to be somewhere down Hall Lane a haunted house. I'm not totally sure whereabouts it's supposed to be actually. It might even be this one, possibly, I don't know. But anyway, Hall Lane continues for a long way. At the very far end of the lane there is a farm, but I'm not walking all the way down there because it's a good mile and a half, maybe even 2 miles away from here. So yeah, that's something that you could potentially do in the car, but I'm not walking it, not after being on my feet for 3 hours already, because believe it or not, we are 3 hours into this walk and we've still got quite a bit left to cover. It's going to be touch and go whether I make it in 4 hours, you know, but we'll see. From here we're going to go back along Hall Lane. There's a footpath which takes you to Corn Close, and then we're going to talk about Ferry Road and Ferryside Gardens and everything that's along there. This next section began with a very muddy path across a field to Corn Close. It's a good job I was wearing my boots. Corn Close is perhaps the smallest street of all. It only has a handful of bungalows located in a cul-de-sac off Ferry Road. Ferry Road is the main Fiskerton thoroughfare. It runs to Short Ferry before crossing Barling's-O towards Stainfield. Ferry Road gives us the best evidence yet of how the village grew so significantly during the immediate post-war period. In the 60s and 70s, many new houses were constructed along here. Unlike Ferry Lane, Ferry Road's name refers to a different one. As well as the ferry we've just learned about, there was a second one. It was located at Short Ferry. More on that later. Between the end of the houses and Hall Lane is another new build cul-de-sac which went up during my time here, Ridings Close. Aside from its 5 houses, this is also where you'll find the village's war memorial, the silhouette of a soldier surrounded by poppies. Now we come to another very residential area, Ferryside and Ferryside Gardens. I reckon I filmed a bit too much of this. The majority of these are bungalows, but there are some 2-storey terrace and semi-detached homes located on Ferryside. They were both post-war developments, although they were separately built. It's easy to see where the dividing line is between them. Like the original houses on the Close, Ferryside was sheltered housing. It consisted of 24 dwellings, mainly bungalows. Before all these existed, Ferryside was another of the 8 sites of the huts. The others were all out towards Short Ferry. Only 2 of the hut sites were in the main village cluster, the Crescent and Ferryside, and now we've seen them both. I've got to tell you, it's a real challenge trying to cover every single street, because I've been going for almost 3.5 hours now, and I know there's not much left, but yeah, I'm glad I don't do this all the time, try and cover every street and every place. I would never do it, I would never make it round. You see now why my routes can sometimes miss things out. Well, here I'm making sure I'm missing nothing. Right, we're going to carry on down Ferry Road. The next place to go is a housing estate to the left beyond Ferryside, and that will be the St Clement's Drive, Priory Drive, Churchview, Crescent estate. There's 4 streets to see round there. Then we'll come out of that, go past the Crescent down to the Holt, and our finishing point is the Carpenter's Arms. So now we're on the home stretch. Everything left now is on Ferry Road, the High Street, or the last remaining housing estate. Keep Ferry Road in mind though, a little later we'll be back here for something very special, thanks to one of its residents. We now come to the estate. I've always known this as the St Clement's Drive estate, but I do know some call it Church View. It consists of 4 streets: Meadowbank Avenue, St Clement's Drive, Priory Drive and Church View Crescent. In total, there are 84 bungalows on this estate. It was built shortly after Ferryside Gardens for the very same reasons. Even though it's all bungalows, these aren't all full of retired folk, like similar estates we've seen elsewhere. Instead, this is an eclectic mix of both the retired and working families. A lot of Fiskerton's commuters live here. I have fond memories of this area. When the village shop was still in existence, I used to deliver newspapers on this estate. I'll never forget in icy weather how slick the roads can be underfoot here. Using the shop bike to deliver was quite a challenge. It was these houses that were most at risk of flooding following the deluge of Storm Babbitt. Residents here have now returned. Although the Witham has flooded for centuries, I've never personally known the water come so close to this part of Fiskerton. And after a walk around the estate, we're now back opposite the Crescent, near the bus stop, which my parents use on the regular. Okay, one last leg of the walk to go. So we continue down Ferry Road, and in a moment you'll see a bus stop up there, and close to that bus stop there's a little side street called the Holt, which is a dead end. I'll nip up there and just see if I can capture a shot or two of that. And then you can see the bend in the corner, over in the corner there. Round the corner there is the Carpenter's Arms, which is Fiskerton's pub, and that is where we will call it today. And I'll walk back to the car via the corner of Chapel Road there, it's back to the Crescent, and that will be Fiskerton in the books. Like Manor Yard Court, the Holt is a collection of houses built on the site of another old farm and its associated outbuildings. There was also once a scrapyard close by, but that's now been built on too. It's the private close at the end of Nelson Road. Ferry Road has become the high street, and here's the phone box. It's not red, but it still has its phone, and it still works. Its windows used to be all smashed. It's good to see it's been repaired. When I lived here, I walked past it regularly. That's because it was between the Crescent and the final landmark on our walk, the Carpenter's Arms, or the Carps for short. Originally, the Carps was part of a row of cottages, some of which have now been demolished or greatly altered. They all had trades associated with them and were all owned by a carpenter, James Yates, who had a workshop here. The first mention of a beer house here was in 1842, and by 1871 it was a fully fledged pub with a shop that sold groceries. And there you go, we've been to the Carpenter's Arms, which means the route is almost complete. I'm now doing a very familiar walk here from the pub back to the Crescent. You see, when I lived here for those 6 years, I was a member of the pool team at the Carpenter's Arms. I didn't play all that often because there were better players than me, quite frankly. But it used to be a thing. I think it was on either a Tuesday or a Thursday night. I can't actually remember which day it was on. And we used to go down there and have a good couple of hours playing against other pubs from the local area. The Fox and Hounds was one of them at Witham. So too was the Tirret, which is another pub within the boundaries of Fiskerton. And when I reached the car in a few moments' time, after crossing Chapel Road and going back onto the Crescent up here, we're going to hop in the car and drive down to Short Ferry, which is a name you might recognise from the Stainfield episode, because if you remember we started there outside the Tirret Arms on the bridge over Barlingzoe. That's the parish boundary between Stainfield and Fiskerton. And last time we went into Stainfield. This time we're going to be talking more about the Tirret Arms pub the Short Ferry Caravan Park, and a few other bits and bobs down there, which are all within the parish boundaries of Fiskerton. Oh, get me in that house. I am knackered. I've crammed in as much as I could into that main walk, but even with an hour-long video, there are inevitably other bits I haven't talked about. Mind you, this drive out to Short Ferry is the ideal opportunity to throw a bit more in. You might have noticed that even though Fiskerton is within the Lincolnshire Lime Woods, it's not the most wooded settlement in the world. There are still forested areas around, most notably the incorrectly named Fiskerton Wood, which is off this very road. The reason it's wrongly named is because it should be Fiskerton Longwood. It covers 42 acres, but it's greatly truncated compared to what it used to be. It used to stretch all the way up to Hall Lane and beyond. Twice the woodland has been cut down. These were known as the Great Fellings. The first occurred in the mid-1600s, the second in the mid-1800s. It's highly likely, given the history of the Witham, that the river was used to transport the felled timber away from Fiskerton. It seems mad to think that 400 years ago, the left-hand side of this road would have been blanketed in trees. To the south of this road is Fiskerton Fen, a vastly different animal. It's a wetland which has a history going back to the Bronze Age. In the fen, lots of important historical finds have been made, most notably the Iron Age Fiskerton logboat. It was found in 2001 during excavations on the Witham's banks. 20 years earlier, a timber causeway was unearthed. It's believed it was used by the local tribe to deposit valuable objects into the waters as ritual offerings. The logboat can be seen in the collection, Lincoln's County Museum, which was founded in 2005 near the Usher Gallery on Lindham Hill. We're almost at Short Ferry now. As we've been approaching, we've passed a local brewery, Ferry Ales, hidden away up a track towards the river. Just after it is this Short Ferry pumping station. This has one primary job: to pump water from the River Witham to the River Ancombe when required, to maintain flow and to minimise any potential flooding. Speaking of flooding, Short Ferry is an area that has a lot of issues with it. As you can see, Storm Babbitt's effects were still being felt here. The bridge to Stainfield was closed, however we covered all that in Stainfield's episode. On this side we have the Tyrwhitt Arms, which used to be called the Short Ferry Inn. It gets its name from the Tyrwhitt family who owned land at Stainfield. If we're talking names, Short Ferries is fascinating. You see, there was literally a short ferry here. It didn't cross the Witham, instead it crossed Barlingzoe. With it being much narrower than the Witham, you can understand the name Short Ferry. It was replaced by the road bridge sometime in the 1820s. It was originally a toll bridge to compensate for the loss of ferry fares. If you go around the back of the Tyrwhitt Arms, you'll find a large complex of buildings. This was originally a farmyard owned by James Wright, who was also the licensee of the pub in the mid-1800s. Subsequent landlords combined farming with keeping the inn. In the 1930s, the Hand family, who owned the pub at that time, also collected the bridge tolls. Short Ferry still has businesses, but farming isn't the main one now. Instead, alongside the complex is Short Ferry Caravan Park. I don't know if it's the case now, but when I lived in Fiskerton, the park was very popular with Sheffielders who would come here for angling. This makes sense historically too. If you go back to the time of the railway, keen anglers would use 5 Mile House Station to visit Fiskerton and Short Ferry for fishing. It's still very much a thing here. Short Ferry has fishing lakes overseen by Short Ferry Angling, established in 1988 by Rob Hardman. It's considered a leading supplier of coarse angling tackle, with a large shop situated right here on the caravan park. The proximity of the pub makes this a very attractive area too. It truly is the modern fisherman's dream. Now, if you're wondering why the road's closed, I can show you why the road is closed. It's all to do with flooding, I'm afraid. This happens regularly just here. I'm not going to go much further than where I'm standing right now, because you can see from here, there is Barlingzoe, and there you can see beyond the fields covered in water. That's the result of Storm Babbitt, I'm afraid, and that is what people were worried about would happen to Fiskerton with the riverbank. But of course it's not materialised yet. You can just see over here, look, there's a pipe there that's pumping water off the field and into Barlingzoe, which drains into the Witham further downstream to get rid of it. The road is completely underwater. You might remember this from the Stainfield episode. The road goes over this bridge, then Stainfield is to the left up there. But at the moment, I think you need a boat more than a car to get over there, quite frankly. But we didn't really come down here to see this, did we? We came to see the turret, we came to see a few other bits and bobs at Short Ferry. There's one more thing I want to catch on the way back into Fiskerton, and that is the Fiskerton Fen Nature Reserve. Covering 18 acres of land between Fiskerton and Short Ferry is a nature reserve, primarily a wetland area based around a lake. The reserve was created with the help of European funding following the completion of the flood defence works on the River Witham. The lake is actually the remains of an old clay pit which was dug out to create the Witham's banks when it was straightened. The clay was extracted between 2002 and 2004, and surrounding the lake are thickets of blackthorn and hawthorn scrub. In honour of the Fen's rich history, the reserve features a bird hide which has been built in the style of a Bronze Age hut. As the Witham was a key trading route at that time, many artefacts from that period were found during the reserve's development. The lake is maintained by rainwater, and clumps of common reed allow specialist wetland animals and plants to survive here. Reed-dependent animals here include some of the UK's rarest species, including the bittern and the marsh harrier. A wetland landscape with open water and a reed bed is a habitat that's declined by as much as 99% in the last 300 years. Vitally important though ecologically, they are now making a comeback nationwide, with similar restoration projects just like this one. Fiskerton Fen is free to visit, open 24/7, 365, and this is its modest car park off Ferry Road close to the brewery. So effectively that's it, but I've got one more thing which I do need to talk about. You see, last night I put a message up on Facebook to tell people I was here, and I got a response to it from a very nice lady called Kelly, who is with me here.
Hello.
Hello. Telling me about something that was found in her house on Ferry Road, and I have called in to have a look at it.
Okay.
And here it is.
We discovered this when we took the paint off. So basically, it says Flying Officer Coats, 49 Squadron, Fiskerton, August 1943.
It's handwritten in pencil, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy stayed in this house.
Yeah, so after a little bit of research, and we haven't managed to find that much information, we discovered that this was the handwriting of a chap called Harold Kenneth Coates, who is remembered at Runnymede, and basically he flew a mission to Germany in World War II on the Lancaster, which was successful, but unfortunately when they came back, the undercarriage of the aircraft had suffered quite bad damage, and unfortunately it went down in the North Sea. And Harold sadly died. There was 2 survivors from the crew, but that is all the information we know. But
right.
What was quite fascinating is that my husband's in the Air Force, and he flew a mission for the Dam Busters when he first joined the Air Force, when he was based at RAF Cranwell for a documentary. And it's just sort of one of those sort of full circle moments, really. You know, we were new to Lincolnshire when we bought this house, and upon discovering that,
it must have been amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was really amazing.
Well, what a fantastic thing to find. I mean, one of the last things you expect to find when you're renovating a house is something like that, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. And what a fantastic little anecdote. And this is the kind of thing that I love finding out doing these episodes. So yeah, how about that one to finish it off? Thank you very much for that, Kelly.
Welcome. No worries. Yeah.
I just don't know when to stop me, so I've also decided to add another special section. I couldn't fit this in anywhere else, so here's the story of the Fiskerton Phantom. Despite its name, the Phantom isn't a ghost. It's a cryptozoological phantom cat or other creature, which was reportedly sighted near Fiskerton and formed the basis for a major character in The Secret Saturdays on Cartoon Network. The sighting was reported by 4 girls, Rachel Rowan, Nikki Handley, Nicola Proctor and Joanna Brogan, who were all staying at the caravan park next to the Tirrit Arms in 1997. They described the cat as 4 feet tall, jet black and bear-like. It was seen feeding on a pheasant. They fled immediately to seek help in the pub and also reported finding large paw prints at the location when they returned later. The landlord of the Tirrit Arms also reported that a motorist had made another sighting that evening near where the girls had been. There have been several reports of a panther or bear-like animal in the area since. And that's it, folks. That's Fiskerton. What a brilliant little village it is, I'm sure you'll agree. And isn't it loaded with so much history and so many stories? You can see now why I miss rural life so much. It might not be for everyone, but Fiskerton helped shape me into the man I am today, and I feel proud to have a connection to it. This is usually the point where I tell you I'm off to the next one, but well, that's it. West Lindsey is complete. We've been to all 128 and learned so much about life in this part of Lincolnshire. I did have one final job to do though. To finish the series, I drove across to Gainsborough to meet Trevor Halstead at Gainsborough Cycles, because he'd organised a meet-up with a West Lindsey local. On the way, I recorded some little snippets of some of the villages we've been to in this series and formed them into a montage which will play us out at the end. So who did I meet at Trevor's shop then? Well, as it turns out, it was a former Fiskerton resident. Let's see how many of you recognise him.
All right.
Okay, so West Lindsey is now finished, complete, and I've now hopped into Trevor Halstead's Gainsborough Cycles. Here it is, the humble shop on Ropery Road that you all know by now because it's on the advert at the beginning of this episode. I'm sure you know it. And he's organised some people to come and see me. Here we've got a former neighbour of mine who used to live on St Clement's Drive. His name is Sean.
Nice to meet you.
Indeed. Now then, how many people out there in Fiskerton recognise this guy? Explain what you did, Sean. What was your business?
Ran Sean Hard Garden Services, and I had quite a few customers over the both the villages, Cherry Willingham, Fiskerton and Nettleham, and during the 12 years I spent at Fiskerton, I got to know many people, and I thought I'll just say a quick hello to you while I'm here, and just hope everything's okay with the flooding risk, and hope things settle down a bit.
Well, it certainly seems to have. From my walk around earlier, you will have seen the flood water has definitely receded, and don't worry, your old house is safe.
Nice one. So big hello to everybody that knows me.
Indeed.
Well, it's been a real great pleasure to follow Andy's West Lindsey videos. Really interesting. They are out there for eternity to watch. A great area of Lincolnshire, and I look forward to the remainder of Lincolnshire and following him and sponsoring him where possible. Great guy, a lot of work, and well worth a watch anytime.
And another plug for Gainsborough Cycles while I'm here. Come and see Trevor. This man will sort you out with everything cycling related. I can guarantee you that. Until next time, people, see you later. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.